And I noticed the caliber of dancers in Vegas grew since the pandemic. A lot of people moved here.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
New faces.
New
everywhere.
Faces. So there's LA, there's New York, there's Florida. All these dancers started coming in because there were more jobs in Vegas.
Hello, good morning, afternoon, or evening. When or wherever you are listening to this podcast, I want to welcome you all back to On Call. Today's guest, we have the lovely Susan Salgado in the building with us. Woo! Thank you so much for joining us today, Susan. I know this is going to be a fun one for us in the studio and for all of the listeners that will be tuned in as well to this episode. It's always nice to have someone of your caliber to be in here and to get your insight on things that I'm sure a lot of dancers are going to find value in. So let's just.
I'm excited to be here. Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So might as well let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
So starting as a performer, turned into casting director and producer. You've worked in networks such as MTV, CBS, ABC, NBC, MTV, BET, VH1. So many, right? Everybody, right? So what were or are some of the obstacles that you found yourself facing in this industry? And is it similar to what it was before, or is it a little bit different now?
It still has a lot of similarities. Let me backtrack for a second. I've been in this industry for decades. Yeah. So like you mentioned, I started as a dancer and I got into talent agenting first. So once I transitioned from a performer to an agency, I love the fact that we got to see our dancers that we represented work. That has always been what gave me so much drive to do what I do, because I love putting the dancers out there, get them seen, and get them jobs. Mm-hmm. So I did that for 10 years at one of the top agencies in LA at that time. Mm-hmm. Now there's 20 million of them. Yeah. And then when I left the agency, I transitioned to casting. Mm-hmm. And I got into casting in 2000. So your question is, how is it now? Yeah. And what are the obstacles? Is it for me or for the dancers?
We'll say more so for you, and then if it segues into the performers as well, then
obstacles. Well, if we go back 20 million years ago, when I first started dancing, I started pretty late. I was already in my early 20s. So when I got into auditions and you're in the room full of all these 20 million people who are different sizes, different heights, all that stuff, I found myself being Filipino, that I was not Asian enough for jobs. And because I don't look as Asian as most Asians would, I booked more Hispanic and light-skinned American.
Interesting.
Light-skinned African-American dancer. Okay. Because I had the spiral perm.
Yeah. Whoa.
I had the big earrings. And it was really interesting because anytime they sent me to Asian calls, I was not Asian looking enough. So that's an obstacle.
I see.
So a lot of the people nowadays, there's no limit, which is beautiful. It's so inclusive now compared to back in the day. Back in the day, you had to, even worry about your body types and all that stuff. And I mean, I'm sure that still happens to this day, but it's a lot more inclusive now.
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
All heights, all sizes, transgenders, straight, gay.
Yeah, that is so interesting that you brought that up as not looking Asian enough, because now that you say that, I go on a path of making connections myself when I went to audition too, because
you get typecast right away.
Typecast, yeah.
And that's just not having anything to do with your skill or your looks. It's just what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And it's so funny we're talking about this right now because we just had IDD last week. And one of the things that our guest choreographer was stating is that when you go into a casting call, they have an idea what they want, but half of the time they don't know what they want. So it's your job as the talent to go in there and change their minds.
Yeah.
And I've done that as an agent back in the day. I had a Asian kid, amazing talent, and the show was more for African American musical. And he can sing, he can dance, he can act, and he's this little shorty guy. And I thought, I'm going to submit him anyway because he's very soulful, he's amazing talent. And I talked the casting director into seeing him. He couldn't believe I talked him into seeing him. They wrote him into the script. Wow. That's how good that's how good he was.
Yeah.
And sometimes, that's a rare happenstance that it may not happen to everybody all the time. But I always tell performers, go to the audition, nail it, wow them, and they'll make room for you. You never know.
Wow. Well, thank you for saying that, because I feel like that resonates with my journey and my path right now.
Your experiences.
Yeah. So I knew I was
Nothing is ever an obstacle.
Yeah.
An obstacle is a mind thing. Our mind plays with us all the time. And I hear that all the time. I'm not going to go to the audition because it's a black call. I'm not going to go to the audition because they only want white girls who are tall. Make that change. Make them change their minds.
Wow. That's so relevant, because I just went to an audition in LA and I was kind of psyching myself out already. And my girlfriend was like, it hasn't happened yet. Like, you haven't even, like, the agency I'm with is a go-to, and they were sending me this, and they're like, okay, you're ready, you're good for check-in, they're expecting you, they got your headshot, all that. And I started psyching myself out before I even made the trip over there. I went and I had a great time, and it was a great experience. But that in itself, I was psyching myself out before I even gave myself the opportunity. And that's something that I'm trying to work on already, because I'm very internal. But I was already defeating myself before I even walked into the door.
Here's another tip for you.
Yeah.
Go to every audition you are able to get to. Even if you're not right for that job. You might not be right for that job right now, but they'll remember you for the next job that you're right for.
Okay.
If you don't get seen, they'll never think of you.
Got it. Yeah, like I gave
out of sight, out of mind.
It's like I'm 100% chance not getting it because I didn't put myself out there, versus like whatever the chances are if I did anyways, right?
And that's what I repeat myself over and over again about my intensive, and I know we'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
If you don't show up, I bring these choreographers that are working choreographers, and who knows when I'm going to be able to bring them back again.
Yeah.
And a lot of these people, it took me a year to bring them over here. Chris Grant, Luther Brown, Nika. That took me a year to get them over here. And for them to make that time to come dance with y'all in Vegas, and people are coming here from everywhere now, thank goodness.
It's awesome.
But you never know when you'll have that opportunity again to dance for them. So imagine this, if you wait till you go to LA to take their class or to go audition for them, you're going to be up against 500 more people versus 100 people when you're here.
Yeah.
So it's all psychological.
Yeah. See, and that resonates with me like 100%.
And that's why I said business of dance is so important, because a lot of people don't think about the business side of things. They just want to perform.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But if you want to perform, you also have to understand what goes on behind closed doors.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have that experience.
Yep.
But if you don't show up, you'll never learn those experiences.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for saying that, because I know this has kind of been a relative topic, I think, throughout with all the guests that kind of stepped in, even if we just brushed the surface of it. But now we're going more into detail, and you're making like the light bulb in my head, like, ding,
makes
like
sense.
Yeah, I'm like, that makes
why did I think of it?
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I knew with this episode, I knew I was gonna get so much value from it. So it's amazing. It's so awesome to see the dance form, the art form, evolve, so much throughout the years. And
speaking of which, if you don't mind me interjecting with that, imagine the resources you guys have now compared to what it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You have all the resources. And this is another thing that one of our guest choreographers tapped into. Do your homework. You know how many people show up at IDD and they don't know who the choreographer is they're teaching? They're just coming to take class. And that's my biggest question all the time. What do you want to do as a dancer? What do you want to do as a performer? Are you just going to want to take dance classes, or do you want to enhance your career?
Yeah.
Two different things.
Yes.
So she was like, did you research me? Did you look me up? Did you look up Nika? Did you look up Jill? Did you look up Luther?
Yeah.
And a lot of these newer dancers may not know who they are, but it is disservice to yourself when you're investing money to come take to an intensive and not know who you're dancing in front of. You better believe it. You got to do your homework, go in there and knock it out.
Yeah.
Because you never know when you'll have the opportunity again.
Yeah, absolutely.
My very first one, I had Travis Payne
Yes, Travis Payne.
and Rosero.
Yes.
Both of them were my very first IDD before anybody knew what IDD was. Nobody researched who they were. Travis is like one
Yeah, I
of
know
the
Travis
biggest
Payne.
choreographers, been around forever
Yeah.
and worked with Michael Jackson, Janet, everybody you can think of, the biggest top pop artists, and nobody who knew who they were. Rosero, who is still relevant to this day, does a lot of the award shows. He does Keke Palmer's tour. He's been so busy. And kid you not, when he walked in the room, nobody knew who he was. But when he left that room, people knew who he was. And shortly after that first event, he came back and had auditions for Soul Train Awards because it was happening in Vegas.
Yeah.
And instantly booked dancers that were at the intensive because he remembered them.
Yeah.
See what I'm doing here?
Yes.
I'm
yes.
planting seeds for these choreographers that we bring out here in the event they ever use these dancers locally for future jobs.
Yeah.
Luther is one of the choreographers for Illuminate.
Yep. Yep. I know that. I learned his choreography.
You know what I'm saying?
It all went down to.
And
it all
he
trickled.
just finished doing The Wiz on Broadway.
That's right. I have Anthony Carr. You know Anthony.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
because
he
he
was
he taught
here.
at IDD.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So just see where I'm going with this. It's
Yes.
like I bring you guys choreographers that could potentially bring work for everybody. And that's what the incentive is. It's not your typical workshop. A workshop is, let's bang it out, let's dance, go home. I get so many people that want to come teach, and I love them dearly. They're amazing teachers, but I cannot bring them on right now unless they're looking to hire dancers.
Yeah.
Because I want to give the dancers that come take the intensive the opportunity to be seen so they can be hired. A lot of you guys can't make it to LA for auditions. And a lot of choreographers don't have time to audition. So usually they'll just browse through, social media, whoever submits, all that stuff. But it's so different to be in person.
Yes. You can't like replace that.
No.
No matter how good of an Instagram you have, where
No.
it looks, or you can't replace like the in person.
And it's
being in
not
the
like
room,
an
right?
audition either. When you go to the intensive, they run it like an audition, but at least you have that one-on-one connection with them because you're not in front of 500 other people, right? So that was what's so amazing about the program. It's different from a typical workshop.
Yeah, definitely. I went to the second one, I believe, with Trisha Miranda,
Yes.
Chucky Klapow, right? Klapow. I went to that one, and I will say it's the experience of it is different from anything else that Vegas has ever put on. You know, it's such a unique experience. And now, like you said, that people are coming from out of town now, and it's really catching fire, and it's really the thing it is.
Our most recent one, a girl from Canada came.
Oh, wow.
Canada.
Oh, wow.
It was her second one.
Oh, wow. So she's
Invested
following
in
it,
it.
invested,
I mean,
committed.
that's what it is. It's like we're looking for people who are invested in their
Yeah.
careers.
Yeah.
Because that investment that you put in for the very little price that we charge, it can bring you back 10 times more
Yeah.
because you are being exposed in front of these choreographers.
Yeah.
So, and she did amazing. I think she
Awesome.
got awarded a scholarship, if I'm not mistaken.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so, like, I guess this already goes into our next question here with IDD. But what was the motivation or to really bring
Funny
it to
you should
Vegas?
ask.
Okay.
It started around the pandemic. The
Okay.
tail end of the pandemic, studios started opening up. And I started seeing more teachers coming out to Vegas teaching master classes. And I popped in a couple of them. Some of my former clients that I used to represent. I was like, oh my God, it'd be so nice to pop in. And I noticed the caliber of dancers in Vegas grew since the pandemic. A lot of people moved here.
New faces
New
everywhere.
faces. So there's LA, there's New York, there's Florida. All these dancers started coming in because there were more jobs in Vegas. So I said, I've been toying about the idea for a long time. And I said, maybe it's time. Because I found myself sitting in the corner. I wanted to say something. I'm like, nope, it's not your gig. They're doing the Q&A after the class. And I was like,
Yeah.
I have something to say, but I'll shut up. And I said, okay, maybe it's time for me to do my own. So Industry Dance Day Intensive happened. And that was magical. And it brought some more dancers that I haven't seen before. And I was like, in a casting perspective, I also wanted to build up my roster because I still do work with a lot of dancers, casting all kinds of jobs. And I'm like, what a great way to see all the amazing dancers in Vegas in one place. And that's the start of it, really. And I brought in choreographers, casting directors, producers in the panel, and agents. And mind you, when I first started thinking about this idea, I talked to a talent agent. I'm like, you guys really need to represent dancers in Vegas. Why don't you guys have presence in Vegas? Every time I'm looking for dancers, I call local dance agents. They call themselves dance agents. I'm like, they don't submit anybody. And I'm like, why is there no presence of dance agencies of any of the major agencies in Vegas? The response I received from every single one, they tried it and it didn't work out. I'm like, I beg to differ. Let me change that. So I challenged myself.
What?
So I started bringing talent agents. They've been signing dancers from the intensive.
Yeah.
And those dancers are booking work.
Yeah.
Whether it be in LA or a tour or it could be a residency.
Yeah.
And then to piggyback on that, Cirque du Soleil casting director showed up on the very first one.
Yes.
And they have never missed one since.
Whoa.
Because they keep booking dancers from the intensive and offer them residencies in Vegas.
That's awesome.
So that to me makes my heart happy.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, that's the point. I want to get jobs to all of y'all because you guys are amazing.
Yeah. We thank
Dancers
you.
are already tough enough. Or
Yeah.
the industry you guys
Yes.
selected is a very competitive world.
Yeah, it is. So we absolutely like feel that. And ever since you began that journey, you said tail end of the pandemic with IDD at least, like it has changed the Vegas like culture in a way. Like I always talk about this with people because I've lived here for 12 years now. So I've at least seen some sort of shift within the decade, but it is so ever evolving and is such a transient city where there's so much opportunity for growth. And people like yourself have cultivated that opportunity and that pathway for us because like you said earlier, we are trained to just like focus on the performance aspect of it, and there's a lot of performers out there that know nothing about the business side and they're just kind of stuck and they don't know where to go with it and no real experience and guidance from somebody that can actually cultivate a path for that to actually happen. And so now I feel like it's within the Vegas culture to where like people are coming out here for the jobs. People are like, oh my God, Super Bowl's happening here, right?
Since I've been here, I've met so many people that were working on this trip and then moved. They left to go back to LA. They think there's more opportunities in LA. When in a short period of time, they're back here.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that with a couple dancers. I don't want to like put their name out there.
I've seen a handful of dancers, and I understand you got to test the waters. Great. But you have more people to be up against when you go to those big markets when you're already big.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of opportunities. And guess what? There's going to be more opportunities coming to Vegas because film and TV industry are coming here.
Yep. What they say, Hollywood 2.0?
Yes, sir.
It's going to be in like Summerlin or like Durango area.
There's two, from my understanding. One is being built in Summerlin, which is spearheaded, I believe, by Mark Wahlberg.
Yes.
And then the other one I just heard is Warner Brothers and taking place in UNLV lot. I don't know which one.
Ooh, didn't know about Warner Brothers.
That's very recent. I just read on that.
So they're making their way here. So
and you have all the sports teams coming here. So there's not going to be lack of work no matter what. You know what I mean? So that's another drive for me.
Yeah.
When I got into IDD, and I'm like, so what's next after that? Well, I'm like, okay, I want to nurture the dancers' business knowledge.
Yeah.
And I'm going to segue into that right now since I didn't send this to you earlier because I'm just developing it and it's about to begin. We're going to launch it soon. We're going to be doing an online 12-week session that's going to be strictly for anybody. It could be anywhere in the world, really, and give them the understanding what the business of dance is. And it's called Industry Dance Mastermind.
Ooh. Was that I think I submitted a Google form and to let me know. Oh, that's something different.
I haven't put that out yet.
Oh, okay.
I've literally just been dealing with this for the past couple of months, and because I've been so busy with the showcase and the next IDD and my job, it's been something I've been pondering, and I wanted to make sure I deliver it out there so dancers would look at me like, why you? What's going to make difference getting the knowledge from you? Well, guess what? There's a lot of this information you can get online for free.
Yes. Yep.
What you're getting from me is my experience. I have been a performer, like I said, a talent agent, casting director, now producing. I will be able to give you a lot of the nuggets that the people in the industry may not necessarily give if all they've done is dance, choreograph, and not have had the business of dance.
Yes.
So they will have coaches anywhere from financial coaching, acting coach. They will get vocal coaching if they want to learn how to do more in the dance, in the music world. There will also be photographers that can talk to them about how to get their photos taken, hair, makeup stylist, wardrobe, a lot of these things that a lot of people don't understand what builds a career. And that's what I'm offering, to give them the understanding of how to prepare them.
Yeah.
Especially those people that are trying to bridge the gap from being a studio dancer to commercial dancing. This is the perfect tools for them.
Yeah.
It's a business for success.
Yeah. And that doesn't really sound like anything else I've heard from anyone proposing ideas and like they're going to cultivate this program and all. Like that is exactly the elements that play into the whole picture.
And I get so many questions after each intensive, and we don't ever have enough time in our Q&A. And I would get DMs all the time, and I'm like, that's how this all started.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to help educate the dancers more so than just taking classes and the workshops and all that stuff. I'm like, I want to be able to help them from point A to point B.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's coming soon.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We'll all keep an eye out for that. All the listeners, keep an ear out for that. Cool. So with dance being the ever evolving art form that it is, business, everything that comes and entails with that, Dancers Alliance, what, because even for myself, I need to learn a little bit more about this, but I've seen it around, Dancers Alliance. They try to make our rates, fair, and they put out this whole like statistics and stuff about that. For people that don't know Dancers Alliance and what that is, like what does that entail?
How it started?
No, not at all. Like I only started picking it up a couple of years ago, so I'm like,
Dancers Alliance was formed in Los Angeles by top agencies that represented dancers. Back 3 decades ago, when I was at the agency, we realized music videos there was an abundance. It was just one gig after another, and that's how a lot of dancers got their tour gigs. An artist who do a music video, they vibe on the set. They're like, I'm going on tour. Do you want to come with us? So the problem with the music video rates back in the day, they would pay them $50, $100. They rehearse on the same day a shoot happens. They go perform on the video 12, 15, 16 hours for the day. And then they add smoke, they add rain. They have all these elements that are very difficult for performers at times to perform it. So there was no union.
Yeah.
So the dance agencies decided, let's create Dancers Alliance, which will help set standards for performers. That's how it happened. We were there in the very beginning. You're looking at the person that was part of who started Dancers Alliance.
Okay.
And I'm very pleased to see that 30 years later, it's still being implemented, but in most major cities.
Yes.
Why is it not being implemented here in Vegas?
I was going to ask that question next because
that's one of my goals.
Yeah. Oh, okay. We'll see. All right. And because I've seen that presence, and I think when I did the F1 gig, that I saw the presence of Dancers Alliance and all the
and you saw the
rates,
difference.
And yeah.
The rates were good.
Yeah. So I really wanted to look into it more and being like, because I know some dancers are unionized, right? And
there's no such thing as union for dancers.
Okay.
The only time a dancer is in the union is if you get a job that's a SAG union, SAG-AFTRA.
Okay.
Then you become a union dancer.
Yeah.
You can still do all the other stuff because there's no precedence on live events or, any, like the music videos. They've been trying to put music videos on the SAG contract. And the reason they wanted to do that is so you guys can get residuals on it. But the rate was so bad that we never, ever. It was kind of, music video is kind of one of those things that the SAG union tried to push, but it never really happened. I don't know if they are still doing it to this day. But everybody kind of does their own music videos nowadays. Yeah. They put it out on social media. They put it on different platforms. So with the Dancers Alliance rates, it gave them more pay. It was better pay.
Yeah.
You have X number of rehearsals rates, and then you have X number of hours for the shoot rates. So this is the only thing I can say about Dancers Alliance. I don't know where it's at right now. I know that there's a little bit of tug of war going on with the rates, being that I spoke to some production companies that they're like, you can't really impose on a dancer's rates on a tour if you were touring with Taylor Swift and then you go on tour with Enrique Iglesias or Ricky Martin,
Right.
because it's two different tier.
Yeah, the caliber.
They're
is
not
now-
they're not hitting the same type of arena, so they're not a huge tour like Taylor. So they have to have some tier when it comes to the talent,
Yeah.
the artists that you're touring with. So there was issues on some of those jobs, and dancers getting let go from those jobs because they were pushing to get the higher rate, but they were not on that same tier.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you have an agent, you put your agent to work. You talk to your agent and tell them what's going on the job. If you're being mistreated, if you're not being taken care of, like water breaks, any kind of things that you have issues with, don't take it upon yourself to do that on the job. Call your agent and let them know what's going on.
Okay.
Did I just get sidetracked on that? Dancers Alliance, going back to that, there's a little bit of an issue going on between the agents and the dancers when it comes to those rates. And I can only say this, though. It's a very touchy subject when it comes to Dancers Alliance, because a lot of people here in Vegas, as many times I've pushed for it, as many times I talk about it, it will only happen if the dancers are willing to walk away from the job that will not pay them what they're worth.
Yep, I was going to touch on that and being like, so when say there's some that they don't take the rate because it's too low, conditions, whatever it is, and then that company goes and finds like
Somebody else.
18-year-old or a
Yes.
20-year-old that hasn't been anywhere yet, and they just want to book that, and then the cycle continues.
Yes, what I say about that is you get what you pay for, right?
Yep.
But there's a lot of professional dancers in Vegas that can say no. You can turn down the job. Imagine this, if the lineup of the first 100 people they contacted and they said no, they're going to get second-tier dancer. What does that happen? What's going to happen to your production?
It's going to go lower.
It's going
Just
to be
the
lower
quality of
caliber
it.
quality, right? So it's really important that all the dancers band together, because the only way it will work is if you all say no. It took us a long time to embed that in dancers' minds in LA. 30 plus years ago. Look at where they are now. They say, what's your gig? Dancers Alliance, right? Everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
They know. So one of the other things that pushed me to get Dancers Alliance in Vegas is that I was hearing buzz that there was a job that came to Vegas. It was a pretty big job. And they brought dancers from out of town. They got paid the rate. And then when it came to dancers that were local, doing the same thing, learning the same choreography,
Lower rate.
they paid them the lower rate. Why is that?
Is it because they're local and they're...
You're saving them money.
Yeah.
They're not putting you up. They're not putting you in the travel. You don't have to be flown in
local,
here.
right? Yeah.
So you should even get paid more money than the
Yeah.
dancers that they're bringing in. So think about that.
Yeah.
I know you got to pay your bills. I know you got to eat. But guess what? You turn down 10 jobs and you get that one gig that pays you the right pay. They're going to treat you well. You're going to get taken care of. And correct me if I'm wrong, how many times have you done those cheaper gigs and it's the worst gig?
Every time.
My point exactly.
Every time. Yeah.
And I hate to say this, but there are production companies that will time and time again and hire dancers for the lower rate. Guess what? They need to start budgeting the dancers' rates in their budget.
Yes.
So when they talk to their client, the client understands, okay,
It's part
we
of
got to
the
pay them the
production.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're still put in a bubble sometimes where it's like, oh, they're extras. Like, oh yeah,
They
yeah.
are not extras.
We'll add them later.
Oh my
We'll think
gosh.
about it later. I'm like, no, it's part of the production. Like, it's important.
I've had to turn down casting jobs because they won't pay them the Dancers Alliance rates.
I
I've
see.
had to educate production companies and tell them dancers are not extras. Dancers pay a lot of money to be where they're at for their training. Something happens and they get hurt on the job. Are you going to take care of it?
Right.
Those small paying gigs, most of the time they won't, because they are hiring you as an independent contractor. Now you have to have health insurance. So if something happens to you on the job, they may not have to take care of you. You're on your own.
Yeah.
So how are you going to pay those bills if you keep taking these small paying gigs? I'll give you a perfect example. When I was doing a show in Miami, I was casting a show in Miami. I stumbled into a choreographer, and we started talking about Dancers Alliance. And they have the same problem there too. So he's one of the busiest working choreographer in town, and there's another busy choreographer in town that does the same thing he does. A music video production company hired both of them to do different jobs, different artists. So guy A was hiring dancers at Dancers Alliance rates. Guy B was hiring the dancers at a lower rate. They were both hiring some dancers for the same job.
Yeah.
So you as a performer, Matt, you take a job for me at Dancers Alliance rate, and then you took another job for less, same production company. They're going to look at Matt and say, yo, I can hire you for less money.
Right, because you're already taking that job.
Because you're already taking that job.
Yeah.
So what does that do for what Dancers Alliance means? It will never go anywhere if the dancers don't implement it in every job.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely saw that for Formula One last year, and it was just a big topic. You know, everyone was talking amongst each other.
Did all the dancers get paid the Dancers Alliance rate?
Not all, no, because
why?
I don't know. Some of them were like hired from their agency. Some of them were just like brought on because they saw it from here or there. So everyone got booked in different ways, and I think they used that as the alibi to be like, oh, that's why I'm not making this rate.
And if you were the performer and you said, I'm getting paid what he's getting paid because we're all doing the same thing.
They would get mad if they knew, right? Because we're all doing the same thing. We have to be there the same amount of hours. There was 100 of us, but we're all doing the same thing, just in a different spot.
And here's the problem with everybody getting paid different rates. You're undermining what you're worth.
Yep, just for a little payday.
For a little
really
payday.
Quick, yeah.
And if a dancer got paid a Dancers Alliance rate, imagine if you did 2 of those a month.
Yeah.
You would be making more money than doing 5 little gigs a month.
Yep.
That won't pay you the right pay.
Yep.
So it's really up to the dancer to be smart, and that's what I'm saying. Business of dance.
Yes.
You're not just a performer, you're also a business person.
Yep.
So if you don't understand those mechanics, you're just going to be treading water all the time.
Yeah.
And you're never going to grow. Because a lot of times they're going to say, well, you did the job for me for $250 last time, why I got to pay you $900? See the difference in pay? But only you as a talent can implement those rates if you start learning how to decline them.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a jerk about it. Just say, I'm sorry, but there's a Dancers Alliance rate, and that's our protection, which is why it exists.
Yeah. No, most definitely. And just to know, like, it's been around and it was cultivated like 30 years ago, like the fact that it's been around, it's been there, we as dancers have to really back that up, because that's our representation at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But you know,
it diminishes all the work that we've done over the years if people keep doing that.
Yeah. And that's why it's like a trap where it's like they're waving money and they're like, oh, there's a little paycheck over here, like you can make that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't align with what we should get, and it's like advocating for fair pay. It's not to be like getting all this money and all that. It's fair pay. Like, if you account everything that we do, like you were saying, driving to rehearsal, lunch break, whatever, like they don't
take
account.
your dance classes. You got to buy your wardrobe. You have to get hair and makeup for the girls.
Exactly.
They have to look presentable.
Exactly.
And if you don't apply those rates you're never going to grow. You're never going to advance to the next level, because they're always going to treat you and say, will you do this for me as a favor? No.
Yeah. I don't like to hear that. I've heard that.
And I get it if you're fresh and new in the industry and you're trying to build your resume. Yeah, maybe a couple of favors here and there, but don't make a habit out of it, because they're going to take advantage of you.
Yeah, most definitely.
And you know how many times I've heard, oh, but this is Vegas, it's different. Well, we're here to make a difference. My goal is to prepare you all with the film and TV coming to Vegas in the next couple of years. If you guys start doing the same thing, what we were dealing with 30 plus years ago, that is going to be going backwards.
Yeah. Backtracking all the 30, 20 years that you helped implement.
Oh my gosh, all that hard work. You know how many countless hours we had to sit through the SAG board to explain to them why SAG need to pay dancers a dancer's rate? They used to book dancers as extras. Mind you, they're learning choreography. They're having to do their physical work.
They're up there just as long as the artist is.
Absolutely, if not harder, because you guys have to dance in heels and what have you, sometimes in costumes.
Go over here, that far on this stage, and go here, like, yeah.
So dancers need to be smarter and understand we're here to protect you guys, and we're not just throwing numbers out of nowhere. That's why they exist.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I hope just as much as I've taken in and learned from that the viewers will really, it really soaks into like what they do next in their careers.
I think the form you were asking about when Victoria Monet won the BET Awards.
And yes.
And I'm putting out there that we're starting an alliance, which is going to be all the local dancers. Anybody can join. It's I think we're going to start it with a virtual meeting first.
Okay.
Because we've done that town hall meeting before where people sign up and they don't show up.
Yeah.
I don't get that.
Yeah.
It's a freebie.
Yeah, exactly.
We're here to educate you and help you about your careers. And you sign up for something, and I bring in these caliber of ushers dancers showing up when they've done 2 gigs last night and done 5 shows during the week, 10 shows if you think about it. I'm like, why can't you show up?
Yeah, it's like you want to be there, but you don't want to put in the work or the time or the commitment to the craft, you know? Because there's so much more to it than just being up there and dancing. Like we've been talking about this whole episode. There's so much to it that I feel performers they don't educate themselves on it, or they don't think it's relevant to them. I feel like sometimes it's not going to play into their careers, which it does all the time, but they just blow over it because they're like, well, I just want to dance. Like, I just want to perform. I just want to focus on my looks. I just want to, and that's the downfall, because unfortunately in this industry, you can't really just focus on that, right? So
you got to be smart.
Yeah.
Which is why on my upcoming online series, I want to teach them about the business of finances also. How many dancers do you hear all the time they're broke?
All the time.
They don't need to be broke.
Yeah.
You guys are in the busiest entertainment capital of the world.
Crazy.
There's no reason why. There are some performers, sometimes they have a residency and they got to go gig and dance at a nightclub.
Mm-hmm. Or I know a lot of people that have like 4 or 5 roommates and couch surfing, and it's sad.
It's very sad.
Yeah.
And we need to change that.
Yes. And not just for like making it look good for the gram, but like actually changing it to where it could be salvageable and we can actually live off of this career that we chose.
It's shifting the mindset.
Yeah.
All of it really is shifting the mindset, because like I said, if they don't talk about it, they don't understand all the other mechanics that are involved, it will never change. Mm-hmm. But that's what the town hall meeting is going to be about, just enforcing each other and encouraging each other why you should not do those jobs for less money.
Yes.
Know your worth.
Yeah,
I keep saying that.
Yes, know your worth. That 3 strong words, know your worth, will take you such a long way. It's funny because I had a student of mine in my class last week, because I teach weekly, and they're like, do you have any advice? And I'm like, be confident in who you are. Know who you are, because you'll get into these spaces and some people will make you feel like your worth is diminished, or like everything you believed in and who you are is going to change. And you're like, do I actually know who I am? So it's like being confident and knowing your worth and knowing who you are, because when you get into these spaces, nobody can tell you that. And that way you can always back it up and say, well, this isn't the Dancer Alliance rates. This isn't up to par. And like what we're doing today, these are outdated. Like I'm sorry. No, I know my worth.
And the biggest fear for dancers that I know is that you guys come in droves. There's so many new dancers that come into town all the time. Mm-hmm. That was the biggest problem in LA. everybody comes to LA thinking they're going to be a superstar, right? And there's no question about that. But you as a performer, you're worried about the next person taking your job if you pass up the opportunity on that job. But you know what? It's your relationship. It's who you stand for. It's the mindset that's going to get you advanced, because sometimes things happen for a reason. You pass up on that small paying gig. Yeah, you're beating yourself up because you need to pay your rent. But guess what? Something bigger will come in.
Yeah.
That's going to treat you better. That's going to pay you better. But you can't put yourself in that position where you just have to keep taking the jobs because you think that's what you have to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to.
That one hits home, not only for me but for a lot of people.
But that also covers all the other jobs. As a singer, same thing. But guess what? Singers and musicians, they all band together. Why do dancers not band together?
Yeah, that's really important. Like, I didn't put two and two together, but yeah, they really band together and work as a team. And dancers are very oh, this is my thing. This is what I'm doing.
Gosh, yeah.
I'm a soloist. I'm here. I'm there. And there's always that. And now that I'm more conscious of it, I observe it all the time when I'm out, and I'm like,
it exists.
I see it exists very heavily, especially in the dance world. And I mean, I think events that you put on IDD and all these bigger events that come together and bring everyone together, those are just so important. Those moments are really important because we have to realize that we're not in it alone. And I feel like a lot of the times when we're doing these things, we think that this is just this is only an experience that I'm experiencing right now. When I know my peer or someone this is experiencing the same thing or has already. And even with our question earlier saying are the problems similar, or are they completely different? Because we might be finding these cycles that keep reoccurring, but we just never know how or when to break that.
How can we fix it?
Fix it, yes.
One thing I did notice though at the showcase when we're doing the run-throughs,
yes,
I was pleasantly surprised to watch all the dancers that were there acknowledging each other, rooting for each other. It was not a competition per se, but just the accolades that each other were giving to one another was so wonderful. And I love that because now you're bringing the dance community together.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why those events are so important, because we need more events like that, because there's so many times where we're on social media and we're oh, okay, they're killing it. Okay, cool. Right. But where's the unification? Like I said earlier, you can pretty up your social media, all these followers and all the awesome reels and everything, but nothing beats that in-person contact, energy, communication. Nothing beats that. You can't replace that.
Nope.
Yeah.
I hope I'm answering all your questions.
Yes,
I get so sidetracked half the time because my mind is going 100 miles per hour. But
no, this was a beautiful session, an amazing session. I've learned so much, and really glad that we finally made this connection into bringing you in with the people here, the staff here in the studio.
Thank you.
We'll continue to make great things happen. You'll continue to make great things happen here. And I hope to be in more of attendance in the things that you do. So
I'm telling you, my goal is to put awareness out there in our dance industry. Our dance community needs to get a little bit more involved and a little bit more proactive when it comes, especially with the race. I think that's the biggest obstacle that all the dancers in Vegas are having, because there's such an abundance of work.
Yeah.
But the problem is very similar production companies keep getting those jobs.
Yeah.
But if you don't educate them as a performer, they will never change. But I'm sure as a producer, they up their rate every time they work with that client, whether it be a small percentage or a big percentage. But why do the dancers not get the same?
Yeah.
And if you standardize the rates, which they are there, they are readily available. And when they're putting their budgets together, they just have to make sure that they implement those rates, then everybody will get paid.
Yes. Include that right away, not an afterthought, right?
There shouldn't be any reason for it to be an afterthought. It should be given.
Because we're part of the production. It's not extra.
Yes.
Extra has to just
I'm really surprised about F1 though, because I thought everybody got paid the same rate.
Yeah.
I had no idea that some didn't.
You learn something new every
day. I mean, I told you to deal with when we did the field cast
Yep,
together.
yep.
I was there as undercover, right?
I mean, obviously we were there and I was
Yeah.
talking to you, but
That was my purpose. Is they start doing 5, 6, 7, 8, I'd be calling the agencies and telling them we're learning choreography on the job.
I think that the last 2 8 counts, everyone just started doing the choreography right at
gosh.
the very end.
Okay, so if you watch the show,
Yeah.
watch any footage, can you see the field cast on it? No.
No.
I can
No.
tell you the reason why. They strategically pushed us out on the side of the field. So you don't see us doing the choreo. You saw the band in the front and the artists on the stage.
Now that you're saying that, now I'm replaying all the footage of those last 2 8 counts. They did it.
How many times did they tell us do not do choreo on our ear?
And yeah, how many times did they emphasize saying this is not a dancer position?
It is on the contract. It is what they said in the rehearsals and time again.
Yeah.
And this is one thing I'll be covering on my online series as well, is listen to what they are telling you. They're not saying it to you because they just want to say it. You
Yeah.
got to follow directions.
Yes.
So had the talent on the field cast followed the instructions like they were supposed to, hype everybody up, and we're supposed to be just partying on the field, that shot would have still been in there.
Yeah.
But because they realize once anybody in the union sees that the dancers were dancing the same choreography as what's going on stage, dancers' rates will apply.
Yep, I noticed that. Oh, by the way, guys, we're talking about the Super Bowl with Usher that just happened, the Niners and the Chiefs. This past one, yes, we were talking about that. Yeah, I did notice when we were doing the camera blocking, they totally changed the shots for the actual
Got
event.
further
They
out
changed
and
it.
further out.
Because I had some cuts in there, and I'm like, oh, I'm about to be seen.
Oh,
nope,
no.
they changed it, and I'm like, okay, well.
Because they didn't listen.
Now you're connecting all the lines and the puzzles for me, and I'm like, okay, now I did notice that.
And they did everything they could, time and time again, if you recall, from the field rehearsal to the stage rehearsal, if you will, and they kept saying on our inner ears, no dancing. Just party, no choreography. And the other thing about that too is it's disrespectful to the talent, because the choreographer is hired, that's what they're doing on stage. The dancers that were hired, that were performing on stage with Usher, right? So us as the field cast, if we were told not to do the choreography, stop it. Because now the choreographer is going to look at you and say, I didn't teach you that. That's disrespectful to them. And I believe there were people talking that they were told, the cast was a little unsettled with the fact that the field cast kept doing the choreo when they're not supposed to be doing the choreo. And I believe that would be true because it is disrespectful for them. That's what they got hired for.
Yep.
And to even hear people going, yeah, I danced for Usher. I'm like, no, you didn't. You were in the field cast.
I heard that so much.
I see it on the resume. I danced with Usher. Super Bowl. No, you did not.
I was like, do you think casting directors just take that and they're like, oh yeah, I believe it?
It's so funny because a lot of people didn't know what I do for a living, right? When we were on rehearsals.
So they're
and
like,
stuff.
yeah, I dance for him.
And there were a lot of people pushing and shoving, and they were just running into each other, and people were getting hurt, right? And I had to finally say something to this group of girls, and I said to them, look, you guys don't have to be in front of the camera the whole time. Everybody's strategically placed for a reason. You will get your camera time. Instead, they would clash in people because they're trying to get from point A to point B.
Yep.
And when I finally said that to them, they backed off a little bit. And somebody came up to me and says, oh, Mama Bear, I had to speak up. I said, of course I will.
Absolutely.
Because some of the people that were already placed on their position were getting shoved in the back because some of these people were trying to get in the front.
Yeah.
I said, that's messing us up behind.
Yeah.
Because there's so many of us, and our markers are the people in front of us. And if they're not where they're supposed to be because somebody pushed them off, how's that going to trickle down behind?
Everything. Yeah, I was the one that got pushed a lot.
And how many times did I tell a handful of people that were dancing next to us, I keep saying, get in your spot.
Please.
Claim your spot. Because some of these other ones were just pushing and shoving people.
yeah.
You don't do that in the job. I remember their faces. As casting, I would never hire those people
You guys hear that?
because you never know who the people are on the field with you. Liz, the choreographer, was also witnessing the same thing.
Oh yeah, I know. We were talking amongst ourselves, and we're like, "What the heck is happening?"
But you see what I'm saying, though?
Yeah.
Just be kind. When you're on the job, be kind. It doesn't matter if you're an extra, you're a hype person, a dancer on the job. Everybody's there for the same thing.
Yep.
Have a good time. Have a good time. You're making it a miserable experience for other people because you just want to hog the camera. And that's not pleasant.
Yeah.
There was, 350, 400 people on the field?
Yes, a lot. Yes,
So
it was crazy.
I just had to throw it in there because
Yeah.
it's a little tidbit that has been eating me up, and it's, February?
You're right. It was
How
in
many months
February.
later?
Right now it's September.
But I still use it as an example.
Yeah, because that's like the biggest stage in not just the country, but like in the world. And it's big productions like that are going to happen time and time again. And if you're lucky enough to be a part of it, you got to be aware of all those like elements and everything that's going on. We're all there for the bigger picture, is to put on a good show.
Yeah.
We're one little part of the piece. We can't cause.
It's not all
that.
about you.
Yeah, exactly. You guys, I hope you learned so much from this episode as much as I did. I want to thank Susan for being in here with us today. Where can they find you on social media or?
Well, we have an Instagram page, which is very active. That's where we post everything with IDD and the Hot Property 2.0 Dance Showcase, and soon to be announced online series that will be coming out, Industry Dance Mastermind. So stay tuned. And our next event, IDD, is going to be in January 2025. We're already working on our next guest choreographers for that one. And then as we progress, we're going to be starting to look for choreographers that want to showcase their pieces, wink, wink, for the upcoming next showcase.
Yeah.
So we encourage
okay.
people to submit for that. We haven't publicized it yet, but this first one, we hand selected everybody that performed.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, I'm definitely going to try to submit. So yeah.
You don't even have to try. You're already in. I asked you for the first one. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And we love that you made time to just speak with us today.
Thank you.
Well, yeah. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in to On Call. You can catch this streaming now here in the United States and over in the Philippines. Check us out, guys.